I was the first one to see a falling angel. I was in my backyard, stargazing, when a bright light streaked across the sky, and a few moments later, Gabriela smashed into my backyard. She was really tall. I had to use 2 mattresses for her bed, and moved out most things in my living room to make room for her to sleep. She was very badly injured. Something had taken huge bites out of her chest, her eyes had been ripped out, and one of her wings had been torn off. She spent most of her time unconscious, and the rest gibbering in an unknown tongue. She spoke to me twice, once to tell me her name, and the other time to respond to a question I had asked her. "How did you get injured, Gabriela?" I asked. "War," she replied. She died a few hours after that. In the following days, more and more angels fell from the sky. These angels, however, were already dead. Their bodies had been mutilated, sometimes so badly that if not for their height and wings, we wouldn't know for sure if they were angels. Surprisingly, while many people panicked, peace as a whole was kept, and it only took a few days before the buses and trains were running on time again. When the rain of corpses from heaven stopped, people were overjoyed. When huge cracks in the earth started to appear, they were less so. When fire and lava began to bubble up through the cracks, people rushed to monasteries, churches, mosques, and temples, anywhere they thought they might find answers. When the earth rumbled and the cracks opened to spew out a horde of demons, we finally understood. You see, the demons were all dead. Their bodies had been mutilated just like the angels were. I thought that heaven and hell were in a war against one another, but they were actually fighting together against something else, something worse. And it won. They say the devil is the lord of lies, that his tongue spews only vileness and deceit. Well, I saw the devil. He spoke to me. The hellfire of his words still burn in my mind. He confirmed my darkest fear, answering all of my questions before I could even ask them. "It's true, David. All of it," the devil said. "She never loved you. They're not even yours." The devil's stare pierced my very soul. No one else believed me when I told them the kids weren't mine. Everyone would scoff, saying Anna would never look at another man. They would say the children even have my icy blue eyes. I don't believe it. Yet, he believed me. He knew it, and he even came to me to confirm it. I stared down at the sink, watching the steamy hot water flow down the drain. The devil didn't just come to tell me about that wicked adulteress. No, he wanted something better. A win-win situation, you might call it. We made a pact. He would punish them for eternity if I were to send him their souls. I gladly accepted. Earlier tonight, while everyone slept, I watched as he claimed my adulterous wife. Next, he claimed her bastard children. Still looking down, my hands finally met the warm water. It brought a smile to my face as I rubbed my hands together, washing their crimson sin down the drain. After turning off the faucets, I looked up into the mirror. The devil's icy blue eyes stared back at me. I thought the scraping sound I'd been hearing inside the walls were just rats. I didn't think much of it. My house was old and wooden, located by a small forest. Bugs and vermin were a bit of a given. The price was so low, it seemed almost a desperate plea for someone to take it off the realtor's hands. I put traps around the house, sprinkled rat poison in pods, even had pest control stop by. It didn't help. The scratching continued weeks later. I ignored it the best I could, that slow scraping in the boards. Every night, the sound of something raking its claws against the insides of my home traveled in the air. Almost similar to a knife, sliding along a cutting board. The scratching would travel from room to room, taking its time to make sure nothing went untouched. Finally, it would start directly behind the headboard of my bed, a dragging that made me grit my teeth. Even still, I pretended nothing was wrong, until one morning I awoke to a frenzied scratching in my living room, interspersed with loud thuds. This was accompanied by a panicked wailing, unlike anything I'd ever heard before. I skipped calling animal control. I phoned the police instead. It didn't take long to find the issue. They pulled a small boy out of my wall as I stared in shock. He was covered in dirt, with wild eyes that twitched with each shake of his body. I explained to the officer I thought it was rats that had been pestering me for weeks. Luckily, he believed me. I called to check on the boy later that day. There wasn't much to tell. He'd been delusional from hunger and panic. I was amazed he hadn't been affected by my attempts to get rid of what I thought were rats. He was able to speak, but it hadn't made much sense to anyone. He was convinced that there was a thing in the walls that had kept him there. He said it needed him because it had been hungry. Everyone thought he'd been hallucinating. I felt sorry for him, but glad I could finally rest. That night, I went to bed without a sense of dread. Things were okay. My phone rang out in the silence. I answered, alert when I heard the shouts of the officer over the line. From what my brain could piece together, they'd found the boy's relatives after calling around. He'd recently been reported missing. He'd only been gone for 2 days. There was no possible way he could have been making those sounds for as long as I'd been hearing them. He wasn't the cause, but then neither were rats. Fear seized my chest as the sound of scratching, slow and taunting, began in the wall beside my head. The first and most important role of a toy, any toy, is to take care of their child. Little Leslie was enjoying her bath, upstairs by herself. The novelty of unsupervised baths had not worn off on her, and she had spent every possible moment splashing and playing with her toys. She knew, of course, that many toys did not make good bath time playmates, but her favorite and oldest bath time buddy was Ducky. Ducky had been among the first words she could say, and so had been named simply. Being a simple rubber duck meant Ducky was sturdy, and his smiling face easily survived the younger years, where playtime meant grabbing hold and slamming him over and over into the water, the wall, or the side of the tub. Ducky never minded, and looked forward to bringing her joy, however he could. His patience was well rewarded, and now playtime included deep-sea dives for brilliant fish, exploring underwater caves, and being a boat. Tonight, Ducky and Leslie were swimming with the mermaids in the Pacific Ocean, when something unexpected interrupted. Ducky, above the water that was filled with bubbles, couldn't see the tentacle slither up from the drain and wrap itself around Leslie's leg. He could certainly tell, though, when it yanked her down, her unexpected gasp of surprise, followed by her head sinking below the water, and her hand releasing Ducky. Ducky, ever the dutiful toy, quickly followed her under, diving beneath the bubbles. Shortly after, Leslie emerged, gasping, and quickly jumped out of the tub. Leslie's screams brought her mother running, who found her daughter dripping water all over the living room as she sprinted away from the bathroom. "There's a monster in the tub!" More puzzled than alarmed, Mom allowed Leslie to drag her into the bathroom, where puzzlement quickly gave way to fright. Draped over the edge of the tub was what appeared to be a thin, black tentacle, the torn side of it dripping an inky blackness into the now cloudy water. And there, floating in the middle of the carnage, sat a smiling Ducky, pleased to have done his job. The first and most important role of a toy, any toy, is to take care of their child. The next to last sound you hear in your first life will be a faint scraping noise as the patio door slides open on a hot August night. All the socks you've ever lost are in a thatched hut in the deepest, darkest forest, where an old blind woman unravels them and makes sweaters for her porcelain dolls and tailless cats. Being stabbed doesn't hurt. It's the upward ripping motion that really hurts. If you listen very closely, and the wind is just right, you can hear cacti singing. They sound like whales. As you bleed out, you'll realize 3 things simultaneously. Your feet are ice cold. You haven't called your mother in 6 months. And he left the knife on the bed. Owls are empty inside. Your grandmother gave you a cat's tail and a blood-red marble with a crack in it when you were 8. She said you'd need it someday, and you also remember the word vengeance. Somewhere, there's a closet with an old man inside, kissing a severed head. It looks like his brother. You put the cat's tail and the red marble in a cigar box and bury it in the yard of your first love. You saw a brief flash of light in the sky. A man who writes lines for sympathy cards ran out of aphorisms, so he kills people for inspiration. He also has a footwear fetish. As your first life slips away, you can hear him humming a tune you can't recall, and digging through your sock drawer. The reason mushrooms grow in darkness is because the light hurts their eyes. You are made of stardust and dinosaur atoms. You are immortal, and have been ever since you buried the box. Cats don't like citrus. You felt you were different since your grandmother gave you the marble and the tail, but now that you're dead, you are absolutely certain of it. You rise from the bed, pick up the knife, and walk towards the man. Your second life begins. The intent was there. I had known for a while that she had been cheating on me. A few weeks ago, my best friend had seen her out with another man. I didn't believe him, not at first, but it's hard to disregard infidelity when you're shown photographs of your fiancé kissing a stranger. I was patient in my revenge. She needed to be removed, scrubbed out from the world like the cheating stain that she was. Yesterday evening presented the perfect opportunity. She came home from work, complaining of fatigue, so I suggested she run herself a nice, hot bath. I waited 10 minutes, more than enough time for her to pour a glass of wine, strip, and lower herself into the tub. I'll never forget the way she looked when I knelt beside the bathtub. She was lounging back in the water, her pale hair sighing softly on top of the water and clinging shyly to her neck. She was holding a wine glass in one hand, blue nailed fingers delicately encircling the slender glass stem. I'll never forget the soft part of her lips as I clenched my own fist against her scalp and forced her head beneath the sweet-smelling water. In that moment, the world glittered. The wine glass flew from her hand, shattering into a glorious bloom of crystal shards against the floor. The wine coursed through the gaps between the tiles in webbed rivulets of thinning red. Beneath the pressure of my hands, I felt her begin to thrash wildly. Drops of water arced through the air, trailing warm kisses over the bare skin of my arms. Never before had the universe created such a frame of perfection. However, the sublimity of it all began to fade with each passing second. You see, I had done a lot of reading on death by drowning. Experts say that it takes about 2 or 3 minutes for a drowning victim to lose consciousness, and about 5 for them to actually die. But 5 minutes in, she was still struggling just as avidly as she had when I had first pushed her under. The next 5 minutes were absolutely agonizing. As the high continued to diminish, she never stopped heaving against my weight. The glass had settled on the floor and the wine had fanned out as far as it could go, but the water kept flying as my hands struggled to wrestle her down. And finally, I gave up. For a second after she sat up, we simply stared at each other. The glimmer in her eyes was unfathomable, while the fear in my own was overwhelming. Then I ran. I'm at my best friend's house right now. He doesn't know that I tried to murder my girlfriend. He doesn't know that she wouldn't die. And he doesn't know that I'm a dead man when she comes for me. After all, how can I hope to fight off someone who can't be killed? Rule number 1. Do not swim alone. Rule number 2. Do not open your eyes underwater. Some things are best left unseen. Rule number 3. Do not swim down to the bottom of the pool. Do not touch the bottom of the pool. Stay away from the bottom of the pool. There are things down there that still remember what it was like to be alive. Rule number 4. There are no lifeguards on duty. If you see a lifeguard, exit the pool area immediately. Rule number 5. Sometimes the pool water will be different colors. This is normal. Continue to swim. Rule number 5. Sometimes the pool water will be different colors. This is normal. Please continue to swim. Rule number 6. You will see bubbles rise from the deep end of the pool. You will hear water splashing. Do not try to find the source. Stay in the shallow end of the pool. Rule number 7. Do not enter the pool at high tide. Do not enter the pool at low tide. Only use the pool in between high and low tide. Rule number 8. If you find something floating in the pool, do not touch it. Allow it to float on. Rule number 9. Do not be alarmed if you feel something swim past you. This is normal. Rule number 10. Do not drink the pool water.
Dear Sir, it has recently come to my attention that I have been negligent in areas of etiquette, particularly in the composition and dissemination of letters of thanks. Therefore, without further delay, allow me to express my gratitude. Thank you for the package containing the toy clown's head and parking meter faceplate. I found the clown head to be unique with its interesting paint job and crown of animal fur. The faceplate is certainly something that I was lacking. I found it all the more interesting given that it evidently came from the street in front of my apartment. And thank you for the package containing 17 live roaches, though I'll admit to something of a shock opening the box. My cat did enjoy the subsequent hunt. And thank you for the envelope containing photographs of myself in various states of undress. It called to my attention the poor state of my bedroom curtains and ultimately allowed me to splurge on a new set. And And thank you for the package containing my cat's paws and tail. It was certainly unexpected, but I'm grateful to you for demonstrating the frailty of life. Thank you for the package containing the bloody police badge and the lock of hair. It was quite unfair of me to involve the local authorities when all you were doing was sending me gifts. I understand that now, and I appreciate the thought. Finally, thank you for your letter today. Had you not sent it, I would not have seen my ungrateful behavior for what it was. Etiquette is important, and I would be remiss for not adhering to it. Yours, in sincerest gratitude, Julie.
I've been able to read minds since I was a child. It's not really like how you see in movies, though. It's not like listening to a radio. It's more immersive. I experience everything as if I'm really there. It's a thrilling experience when you read the right minds. The trouble is really with finding minds worth reading. Frankly, reading adults is as fun as doing taxes. Kids' minds, on the other hand, are amazing. They're not bogged down with work and stress and dissatisfaction. The mind of a child is filled with imagination and adventure. That's why I became a kindergarten teacher. I sit at my desk and watch as my class colors. I smile as they doodle away with their crayons. I reach out and peek into their minds. In an instant, I take off with Carlos in a rocket ship, hurtling past swirling galaxies. I visit far-off planets full of blob-like aliens and two-headed Martians. I smile and move on to Marcy. I can smell the candy canes and jelly beans as I'm pulled into a veritable candy land, complete with gumdrop castles and caramel waterfalls. She plays hopscotch with gingerbread men, giggling her musical little laugh. I'm about to move on to Thomas when I feel a tug at my dress. I look down to see Sarah. She's one of the most adorable little girls I've ever seen. Beautiful brown curls, big puppy dog eyes, and a gleaming smile. "Miss Dupree, I made this for you," she exclaims, handing me a paper. I take it from her and see myself in stick figure form. I, Louvre, Miss Dupree, is scrawled across the top in multiple colors. "I love it," I exclaim, and give her a great big hug. Sarah's only been with the class for a couple of days, and I have yet to have a peek at her hopes and dreams. I reach out and touch her mind, and I nearly vomit. I choke as I'm hit with wave after wave of the hot, fetid stench of death. My mind's eye is blinded by a darkness, which seems almost alive, spilling into my brain, seeking to blot out everything it touches. In the void, I feel slimy coils roiling around me, wrapping around my legs, pressing against my face. A gigantic beast, hungrily probing the darkness in search for food. And then a keening wail rises up, nearly bursting my eardrums. The screams of thousands of souls crying out in sorrow, crying out for death. And then I am back in the classroom. I let go of Sarah and compose myself, hoping she can't see me shaking. "That's a lovely picture, Sarah," I say, nearly whispering. "Now go along and get ready for snack time, all right?" She nods happily and skips off. I watch her as she goes. The minds of children are the most wonderful thing in the universe, but whatever that thing in the blue dress is, it is no child. A Disney cast member's top priority is the comfort and safety of our guests. For this reason, all Disney World employees must follow these rules. Failure to do so will result in disciplinary action. 1. Ask to examine the photos our guests have taken. Be friendly. Check for abnormalities. If any are found, call for security. Guests may be distracted with free merchandise. 2. Every 7th photograph taken on the dinosaur attraction must be deleted. If questioned, explain that it was a technical error and offer fast passes. 3. The rumors of sharks and crocodiles in the lagoon are false. However, there is no swimming outside of designated swimming pools on Disney property. 4. Dead alligators are common around the lagoon. Simply evacuate the area, call security, then take note of how much has been eaten. 5. There is only one Mickey out at once. If you find a second Mickey having an autograph session, check for eye holes. All Disney costumes have eye holes. 6. If you don't find eye holes, allow the session to continue, but disallow photos. Call security immediately after the session concludes. 7. If you spot a second Mickey off to the side, lure him into the tunnels. That's what the ducks are there for. Leave immediately afterwards, and do not look back. 8. The Disney World security unit does not wear specially marked clothing. If you see someone wearing a shirt that says Disney Security, shut down that section of the park immediately. Following these rules will help ensure a safe and pleasurable trip to the happiest place on Earth. So stay knowledgeable and stay safe.